Welcome to Don't Shoot the Messenger with me, Chris Ball, and today I'm joined by Alan Turner, who heads up our marketing team and is the marketing director for our group, Hoxton Wealth, and has been instrumental in helping us get to speed.
You know, there aren't that many people who wake up in the morning thinking, oh, do you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to go and get a will, or I'm going to get a pension.
But it's the indirect part that I massively underestimated, I think, early on, which is how much brand exposure you actually get from your name.
Almost every gift I bought for everybody last Christmas was a reaction to having seen a post or an advertisement on Instagram or something similar.
And this was news to me when we first started.
Yeah, where are you getting your revenue from?
I mean, there's insane amounts get spent on these ad platforms now, don't they? You know, Google's revenues are from advertising.
If you are working with a marketer, with an agency, then they should be able to guide you with that.
You know, spraying and praying, as I probably is probably the best way to put it.
Where are they spending their time online? What do their behaviours look like?
Welcome to Don't Shoot the Messenger with me, Chris Ball, and today I'm joined by Alan Turner, who heads up our marketing team and is the marketing director for our group, Hoxton Wealth, and has been instrumental in helping us get to speed and, you know, really build out our whole online presence, which I would like to think we're pretty well thought of and do a great job at. It's an area that a lot of financial planners often ask me about, which is marketing. A lot of people use separate agencies. We went a separate way when we started the business, which was to start this and build this out internally. We chose not to go down the agency route, and we'll get into why we chose to do that. But really, you know, it was a step in the direction for us of the way that the world's been traveling, which is, you know, no longer there's just knocking on people's doors or just trying to call people, you know, or hope that referrals come in really enable you to, you know, and enable you to get the levels of organic growth that most businesses want. You have to go out there and you have to make sure that not only you're prospecting with your existing clients, but you're also prospecting online, because that's, you know, your new storefront. So welcome, Alan, and great to have you on.
Yeah, great to be on, mate. Thanks very much for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too, mate. I am indeed. So let's start off, you know, why ads matter now. So maybe you can tell the viewers, obviously I'm very well versed on your background, but tell the people listening what it is that you do for us and, you know, the types of things that you've been evolving with us over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, as you described at the outset, my role now is a broader remit of group global marketer, director. But at heart, what my expertise is with the paid channel and the paid media, the advertising. Which when I came to Hoxton, that's obviously what skills I brought to the table in the first instance. And I'd brought that from a couple of previous companies that I'd worked at before, and a bit of time as an independent as well. And what that channel gives you is speed. It gets you to where you want to be and need to be at the first rung of a ladder, particularly when you're a startup, particularly when you're a new business. That's where you can get there with real speed and start to capture inquiries, start to capture activity in as short a time frame as possible. Actually, I would say. And I came from a business development background initially, which I enjoyed. I was good at prospecting, and I always wanted to embrace ways of doing that in what I would call a white hat fashion. The company that I joined right at the outset of my career weren't so much engaged in that type of area, weren't investing into white hat marketing, but I firmly believed in that. Started off with sort of networking events to build up my own inflow of inquiries and prospects, and then I'm that old that I started doing that before really online advertising became a thing. But once it did, I really started to explore that heavily to open up an inflow of inquiries in that way, and that's obviously been the direction of travel globally for all industries ever since. You know? Yeah. I mean, there's insane amounts get spent on these ad platforms now, don't they? You know, Google's revenues are from advertising. Yep.
Meta's revenues are predominantly from advertising. Yep. You know, it is is, one of the biggest industries, professions in terms of revenue generation on the planet, if not the biggest.
Yeah, absolutely. And our industry, I think, when I started out, I forget who it was that told me these words, but somebody had these intelligent words of financial services products are not bought, generally they are sold en masse. There aren't that many people who wake up in the morning thinking, oh, do you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to go and get a will, or I'm going to get a pension.
Yeah.
They have to be tapped on the shoulder. They have to be told it's a problem. They have to be reminded that they need to do it. And typically, on a volume basis, you're selling that to them. You're not reacting to their proactive inquiry. And that's why, in the advertising space, you have different ways of capturing those people. There are people out there making those inquiries. There are people out there making exploration through search. But the mass audience, like the tapping the people on the shoulder, the equivalent of your guy in Dubai Mall tapping you on the shoulder, asking you about the latest DMAC property. That's where other channels come in, where you can reach people who maybe at that moment aren't thinking about financial products. But you can nudge them in that thought direction.
And it's also, advertising as I see it online it's you have to be very motivated to get out and walk into an office and go, turn up a reception and go, I need some financial planning today. That's not typically how consumers buy now. Consumers in general buy through something coming up on their phone, seeing an advert on a social media platform, thinking they might need to do something about something, and then kind of researching it online. So, if you're not online and you're not advertising your services online, you are doing yourself a massive disservice to what you can actually do.
You're not making yourself accessible. That is everybody's storefront. Everybody's obviously making increasingly their buying decisions, as you touched on there, in those online spaces. I actually sort of reflected on my buying decisions and my gift buying last Christmas, and realized that almost every gift I bought for everybody last Christmas was a reaction to having seen a post or an advertisement on Instagram or something similar. That's where those seeds of interest are implanted. Even if you don't click there and then on that buy now, that purchase button, it's stored in the memory banks, and then maybe you go and find that product in a physical setting later on down the line. But I firmly believe that there are far fewer people today who just go and browse around a department store looking for ideas. You go to that store with an objective of buying something that you've seen online or someone's recommended to you, and that I think is just the direction of travel,
with like a real intention. I suppose, like, if we kind of relate that back to financial planning, it's people are trying to do a bit more research themselves online. They're trying to do more self-awareness, build up their own personal toolkit to then, when they talk to someone, be more educated. And you need to be playing in those places. I also think the thing that you raised there, which was interesting as well, is that it's the direct impact of actually getting a lead in as a financial planner. So you get someone in who's interested, actually wants to speak to you about your service, who's downloaded a guide about something that you can help them with, which shows they're interested. And then you call them to see if there is an interest. Absolutely fantastic. But it's the indirect part that I massively underestimated, I think, early on, which is how much brand exposure you actually get from your name being in front of people all day, every day. I regularly have people say to me, "Oh, I've seen you online," or "I've seen you everywhere," and it's probably because they've heard of us, clicked on something, and then the kind of advert follows them around online for a bit, and they see it, but subconsciously putting into their brain Hoxton, or whatever the name of your financial planning business is. That's a real indirect benefit that I think people do massively underestimate.
Yeah, and I think actually people on the inside underestimate that at the outset as well, because I would, as you've just said about yourself, like in the early days of doing this work, I was very conversion focused. Still am. It's still a numbers game. But at that outset, that's all you really focus on. And if you don't get that instant click and conversion, you kind of see it as a loss. But as your business scales up and brand awareness and brand visibility becomes more of a side objective, then absolutely. Then you start to realize the soft impact, the indirect impact that comes from those ads being out there, and complementing all the other pieces in your marketing mix, content-based stuff that are doing the same job and across different channels.
Yeah, it's also kind of because you've got the now more of an online personal brand, people building that up. I know, like I've started that myself within within the financial planning space, trying to get build out more of a personal brand, that side of it. And then you've got obviously the direct marketing online as well. And to me, it's not one or the other. I think you have to do both hand in hand. If obviously you can afford the ad spend, which we'll kind of get onto in a minute, and things to watch out for and to look out for when you're doing these things. But it's really it's not one or the other. You should definitely be doing both.
I think so. I definitely think that's true of the financial advisory space, or any professional service or business where you are really relying on the inflow of new clients, new customers to keep the wheels turning. I think depending on your objective as a professional, as a role, the personal branding part with social media and doing that organically is great. But let's take LinkedIn as an example. I think LinkedIn, if you are looking at a B2C offer that you're putting out there, so you're looking for new consumer customers, I think it's fair to say a lot of people on LinkedIn are there in their professional capacity primarily. They're thinking professional rather than personal. So yes, you're going to get people who pass by through your see your posts, see your content, who may take the personal connotations of that message on board and may submit an inquiry. But I think really to reach out to people who are potential customers on a volume basis, you're going to have to step outside of that. And as I go back to my point earlier on, you're going to have to start tapping people on the shoulder. What I see from interacting and speaking with our personnel is that the interaction with their personal brand often comes after they have made their initial inquiry. Our process is, as you obviously well know, we get an inquiry come through. The consumer gets a meeting arranged for them with one of our experts, and then quite often that's when they go looking up that expert and checking out their personal brand and verifying who they are and what their credentials are. So the two things really do work very well hand in hand.
Hand in hand for sure. You can't be doing one or the other. And I think, look, so I suppose kind of like what this kind of neatly segues into the next part that we wanted to cover, which was really understanding the funnels and the platform. So this isn't just going to be us telling you how great online marketing is. We're actually going to try and help you understand a bit more on the marketing process as we go through. So, and this was news to me when we first started, but you've obviously got top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel. So top of the funnel is obviously just general awareness. So broad audience, builds visibility. You're trying to get a very broad, wide reach and get a lot of people interested who may not be very interested at that time in what you're doing, but there is kind of some interest. They might be the target market, they might be the target segment that you're going over, but they are not saying, yes, I want to buy today. Mm-hmm. Next off, then you've kind of got that middle bit, which is like the retargeting and nurturing, which you obviously work a lot on, which again is something that a lot of people do. Yep. They just get a lead. If it's not ready to convert at that point, then they bin it, which is obviously not the way. There's gold in them hills. And then obviously you've got the bottom of the funnel, which is highly, highly targeted, action-focused campaigns that, people who are ready to move at that point do. Yep. But maybe you could go into a bit more detail on those three: top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel, on when you would use it, why you would use it, and how, if you were just starting out now, you would you would apply those things.
Yeah. So in an online advertising setting, let's kind of give some examples of deployment there. So with the bottom of the funnel, people who are already actively thinking about what they need and really looking for a vendor and a solution to that particular problem that they've already identified. That's where people are on search engines. They're out there using keywords. They're making very specific inquiries that you can match advertising against, and obviously make that messaging extremely, extremely specific against that inquiry. So that's a bottom of the funnel person who's already thinking about what they need. At the top of that funnel, the online way of operating in that space does make it more effective and more efficient for you than it would have done in a traditional offline space. If you think about the comparison of just putting a billboard somewhere physically and that being available for everyone that passes by versus a display ad on social media, which, yes, is going quite broad audience-wise, but you can use the tools at your disposal to refine that audience to a certain degree, be it age range or be it geography or be it certain interactions and groups that they may touch on a meta platform, for example. So you can bring that upper funnel a little bit down the funnel, if you like, by being a bit more specific about who you're getting that into. But typically, you're going to use that process to get volume into your system, into your funnel. The middle part, you called it nurturing. Yeah, very good label to put on it, because using the tools that you've got at your disposal, you're able to effectively tag those people that have interacted with your content pieces, with your ads, through the platform that you've captured them. You can remarket to them directly. If they've got to a certain point in your asset funnel, clicked on pages, clicked on links, then there are ways again that you can follow up with them with responsive and retargeting methods through the ads again. So I think, as with everything, those three things working in combination and working in tandem is really what is needed for an effective strategy around it. We targeted at the bottom end is where we started, because
that's generally most people start.
Yeah, we have a very specific offer. We have a very specific offer, a technical offer, and we know very specifically who our demographic is. And particularly the services we were offering when we first started out, that was definitely the case. But actually, as we've then become a bigger business and we want volume, then we started to go at that higher end of the funnel a little bit more and rely on the engine room we have for retargeting to then convert those people and push them down into the lower end of the funnel, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you kind of touched on a point there as well, which is knowing your audience, which I think is really key as well. Like it's no good just spraying and praying, as I probably is probably the best way to put it, or maybe not the best way to put it, but you get what I'm saying. So knowing your audience and knowing your target market. Obviously, as financial planners, we think we know who our target market is, but a lot of this is really data led. Like, we are super focused on data and super focused on tracking again, which we'll touch on in a minute. Like how important that is. There's no point in just coming up with the creative. You really have to be focused on the stats as well and making sure that the data backs it up and tracking that. But let's start with knowing your audience.
Yeah.
So, what are the key points there that people should consider before they start spending loads of money on adverts?
Well, I mean, you've got to know who your existing clients are. You start with looking at your existing clients, demographic profiling, segmenting them down. Where does the 80-20 rule, right? Where are you getting your revenue from? And then you've got to look at how you can get to those people, through what means, through what platforms you can get to those people. What is that demographic doing with their time? Where are they spending their time online? What do their behaviors look like? Certain platforms will, you're not going to get to 60-year-olds by targeting them on TikTok. That's not how it's going to work. And many other platforms you could talk about in different ways around that. So that's actually, if you don't know that piece, if you don't understand who your existing clients are, who you have success speaking to, then frankly, you can't really get started at all, because you're going to be spraying and praying. You're going to be just shooting bullets blindly into thin air and just hoping that something is going to land.
Yeah.
And the internet's a big place, so you're going to be capturing a lot of people of zero relevance. Being as specific and niche as you possibly can be with the targeting, with the messaging to match that, is how you're going to start to see success.
So I think a lot of people worry with that and go, well, what if I might get someone that's out of it? Like, what would you say to that?
It's a psychological challenge, that, and even today, like as a marketer, my default mentality is, I want them all. I want all the clicks. I want all the people.
I want all of the clicks.
Yeah, because when we have those conversations about right, let's let's change the messaging in this way so that we don't get those people, the people that we don't want. And I'm often like, well, let's get them anyway, and and then let's see what we can explore and what we might be able to get out of them. But it's as you say, it can't be a case of, all right, let's get 100 people and hope that one person is the right match, because you're going to get apathy, you're going to get fatigue very, very quickly in your expenditure, in your trust in the process. And if you are getting people as far as actually making an inquiry, then any follow-up, you're going to very quickly start to get fatigue around, well, hang on a second, there's another conversation, and they're all not getting anywhere.
It's it does burn out the people that you have, the setters, the business development managers, the coordinators, whatever you want to call the people that are actually calling the leads, if they're not calling people that have no interest in what you're doing or actually know why you're calling in the first place.
Yeah, and on the creative side, I mean, if you don't know who you're targeting, then your creative by default is going to be very generic and very unspecific as well, which is going to make your campaign even less effective.
Yeah,
because you're just going to have something out there that says, I'm John, I do this, and no one's going to stop and look at that.
And that's it. And great ads start with knowing who your client is, understanding the problems they face, and then building the creative around that, don't they?
Being noticeable.
Yeah.
That's a big piece in today's world. I think people are able to get something up and online and created so quickly.
Yeah.
It's a very busy space. It's a very fast moving space. Your ad has to be noticeable. It has to stick out. I was listening to a podcast during the week, a really interesting one with David Droga, who used to be at Saatchi & Saatchi in Asia, and they did a study around the effectiveness of ads online, different creatives, and they compared a video of cows eating grass with a selection of ads that were online. And they discovered that the cows eating grass was more interesting to more than 50% of the audience
than the ad.
Than the ads that they selected online. And the reasons they came to as far as conclusion was that over time everything just goes to a neutral point. Everyone gravitates towards what is the norm. Increasingly, all ads about cars pretty much look the same. All ads about banks pretty much look the same. And over time, the audience tends to sort of gloss over that. I think with AI and things like that, there's a danger that just everything gets looking the same because everyone's using the same tools, right? So.
It's everyone looking the same. And I've definitely noticed that of AI now, especially on social media, is everyone's posts sound the same. Like that there's a patter to it, there's a question at the end or whatever. Like I don't know about you, but I can very easily tell what has been written by someone and what has been, what is actually done by AI.
Yeah, 100%. And the skill, the expertise that you have as a professional can really be diluted, can really be lessened if you're not telling that story yourself and using your own voice.
But also I think it gives, kind of flip it on its head, I also think it gives people a chance to shine through with real creative as well. Because like when you see something that isn't, I actually want to read more on it now.
Yeah.
Like it's weird, it's had the other effect, because there's so much stuff out there now, a lot more noise. Actually, when I can see that something is like creatively really pleasing, or I can see that it hasn't been made but with AI, I'm actually much more likely to read it.
Yeah,
weirdly enough. And I think the other thing as well that's key is that obviously within what we do, a lot of our target market is particularly, is not, 15 to 25. Our target market is probably 40 years and above. The income ranges that we're looking at are people either in accumulation, so have disposable funds, or or near retirement, and they're looking now for what to do with that.
Yep.
So it is being super. And I mean, that's not super targeted. You can be even more targeted on postcodes, on zip codes, on country, on all the other bits and pieces that you go into and run different ways. But also, what I think is really interesting about these tools now is that you can actually upload a copy of essentially your client base, and then it will start profiling out people like that for you as well. So finding more of your target audience.
Yeah. The tools are evolving all the time, and the targeting capabilities are evolving all the time. sometimes not for the better, I have to say. The evolution of it, though, if I think about when I started out, and really your best way of profile targeting was to try and second guess the websites that those people would be inhibiting. Social media was much less universally used as it was today, so you're relying really on the Google ad network at that point in time. So you're trying to second guess who your 40 plus professionals are following online as far as websites, what websites they're reading for their news, their sport, and all that sort of stuff. And that's the game that I was playing early doors. But yeah, with the advent of sort of Facebook ads now, Meta ads, Google has evolved over time. The targeting options that they have alongside it, so you can delve much more into what they perceive to be the interests of the audience, what's obviously their demographic profiling, and they base that around the data that they're gathering, which, as we know, is huge. So they're able to give pretty solid sort of profile
matches.
Profile matches.
It's very difficult to. It's very, you can't compete against that, can you? Really, I mean, it's super targeted. Yeah,
and the profile, the list match targeting that you mentioned, I find really interesting as well. I think you have to be very trusting in the algorithms that the platforms have and the data set that they have to go for that in high volumes. We've had success with it over time. But yeah, the theory is, you, as you say, you've got your client list or prospect list or your inquiries, people that you've captured. You can upload their details to a certain point, and then Meta or Google or whatever the platform's going to be is going to try and locate as close a match as possible to more people who look like that person. It's a tactic you have to be careful with, because if what you want them to match against doesn't fall outside criteria that they will allow you to ordinarily target, example being nationality, which isn't something that Google will allow you to specifically target against or can. So if you are saying to that person, right, find more people who look like this group of clients that I've got in my client bank. If those clients happen to all be Americans that work in the tech sector, Google isn't necessarily going to know that. Google's going to know what websites they go to, and it will find other people that have gone to that websites who might be Japanese people, or whatever. But it's a game, as a lot of these things are.
And again, like whether or not you're looking to do this on your own or whether or not you're looking to do this through an agency, it's really important that you start with this, because this is going to be the first thing that an agency or you would need to really look at before you go on.
Yeah.
So let's get onto that topic then of DIY versus agency. So, many marketing agencies say that you can do ads, but, there are hell of a lot of marketing agencies out there, and there's obviously a clear reason for that. It's very low barrier to entry to get into.
Yeah.
There's not huge setup. You basically just need a computer and a bit of an online presence, and you can kind of get going and start billing yourself as a marketing agency. But we all know that it's not a free thing. It's not a free resource. A marketing agency is going to charge you. So at what point would it make sense to use a marketing agency versus doing it yourself? Like, kind of what ad spend would you say? That's another important one, which is how much do you think people really need to spend on adverts to generate, decent traffic, and how many leads would you, that would be the key is, well, if I'm going to spend this much, how much do I expect? As financial advisors, we're very analytical. We want to know, if I do this, will I get this?
Yeah.
I think people would be keen to hear that as well.
Yeah. So we talked about understanding your client, understanding your business model and how that works is really important as well. So conversations I have with professionals in this space, we'll start with we're talking about, right, what are your objectives here? What's going to constitute success? How many meetings are you expecting to create from this activity? How many prospects do you want to be speaking to per week, per month? And also, what value do they place on a meeting? Do they have their head around, right, what price are you willing to pay for a meeting in your diary or for a new client? And then you can work from there as far as where their tolerance is for spend and where their business model aligns with that. I think, if you think about the funnel that happens within the business once that lead has been captured, so the sales funnel, if you like, then you're going to be looking at really trying to capture, to create one meeting for yourself. You're looking at something like half a dozen inbound inquiries. If they're quality inbound inquiries, people that are ready to enter into a meaningful conversation and start to progress. So then you're going to be looking at trying to figure out, well, okay, with the people that I sit in front of and have a first meeting with, how many of those realistically do I end up turning into clients? Maybe it's 1 in 2, maybe it's 1 in 3. And then again, you work back from there and multiply to understand what sort of traffic you've got to generate, what sort of impression rate you've got to generate. And there that gives you what sort of spend you're going to look at. Typically, if you're going to meaningfully enter this space, then you're going to be looking at probably thousands of pounds on a monthly basis, rather than anything lower than that, I would say. Because, if you're not committing to it to a volume level that, is going to get you meaningful volume and enable you to make conclusions about the quality and about the conversion points around it, it's going to take you a very long time to get there. And 12 months later, you're going to have not really sat enough meetings or have captured enough people to really understand whether it's actually working or not. And this is going to stretch out the whole process, which is long enough as it is, right? And in financial services, that buying process takes a long time. When we first sat down, when I joined the business, I had that conversation with you. I'm like, look, I'm going to be asking you to spend money. We're probably not going to derive any revenue for at least 6 months into the process. I need you to trust me and be ready for that. And that's the same if you're a one-man show and doing the same thing.
And I think that's important because a lot of people go, all right, well, I can turn the leads on today. Automatically, I'm going to expect revenue tomorrow. And it does take time to figure it out, tune it and tweak it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And actually, I think a big leg up on that is if you are looking to use, let's say, an agency, one of the questions you should ask them is have they worked with a financial planning business before? Because if they haven't, they're going to be learning this as well. It's not, they might understand the adverts and, be a bit ahead of you on that, but they don't understand your profession or your field.
Yeah, there's so many nuances in financial services, and a lot of it is down to human psychology, which you build up an understanding of over time in speaking to clients directly and how that consumer brain is working as they go through the process. As you rightly say, an agency that's not worked in that space for clients in that space is going to find it quite difficult to get there very quickly as far as their understanding. I'd actually say, to look upon my career as a professional, that's where I've been able to carve out a place for myself, is the fact that as a qualified advisor and a marketer, that mix has been good for me on an in-house basis. There are agencies out there that specialize in the space and do a good job of it, but I think, you said earlier on, and you're right, there are a lot of digital marketers out there, a lot of agencies out there, and just grabbing any agency, any marketer and saying, hey, can you get some leads going for me? You got to do your homework on what they've done before, what types of clients. If they've been working with fitness trainers, then that's not really going to be they're not really going to get what you need to do and where you need to go. So it's super important in that fight, and obviously that's quite a unique skill set as well. The marketing side and the financial planning side. That's not something that lots and lots of marketing agencies typically have. So it is really, really worthwhile taking your time and making sure that you pick it, because a lot of these guys, it will be a retainer from the get-go. For an average agency, you're probably looking at a couple of grand at least. For an agency, it could be 10 grand a month for their cost. Then you've got to spend your advertising money on top. Yeah, exactly. If you're spending, a couple of grand on the engagement with the agency in the first place, you're going to have to at least double that to justify the return on the ad spend, because otherwise your cost per lead is just amplified by the fact that if you're paying £500 in ad spend and £2,000 in addition just for their time, then basically you're multiplying your cost per lead by 5, and your economies of scale are going to be terrible. It's depending on the person, right? There are people who will. There are people I've seen who play at it themselves and try and test out their ideas. If they see seeds that their ideas are working, then it becomes a capacity and a time commitment point of view from their perspective. If you're a financial advisor, you shouldn't be spending 40% of your working week running ads on Facebook.
No, probably not. Yeah.
So, but having a play at it, understanding whether you've got the right ideas in play. I think there's nothing wrong with that. And then once you have a cleaner idea of what you want to do, reaching out to a party that knows what they're doing to deploy that for you on a bigger scale is probably the way to go.
The other thing that financial advisors, I think, will struggle with when they do advertising as well, especially themselves, is how direct you need to be with the messaging. So crafting that. As financial planners, it's quite, especially in the UK, I notice it less in the US, but more in the UK, you have to be very compliant, which is a given. And people are constantly worried about being very direct with people. Whereas actually the best adverts and the best converting adverts, let's put it that way, are normally the most direct and will get you the best quality leads because they are honing in on a problem that the client has. Just putting an advert out there for a generic financial plan. I mean, I don't know many people that get out of bed on a daily basis and go, oh, do you know what? I really need to get my financial plan sorted today. But what they do get out of is I'm really worried that if something happens to me, I might need to get a will in place. Or I'm really worried that I don't have enough insurance if my income was to dry up, or I'm really worried that I don't know where 10 of my pensions are now.
Yeah.
Actually, trying to understand the worry, which isn't a financial plan. A financial plan helps you understand the client's needs and put them on the right direction for sure. But that's not what you would typically advertise for. And people will probably say to me, well, that I'd completely disagree with that. And I do understand that you should try and lead with a financial plan, but that is not what motivates people to take action.
Yeah, I think so. The messaging part, I think, is really interesting and really key. Whenever I think about that, there's a visual that pops into my head. And actually, if I think about when I arrived here earlier on, you step out of the lift, and you're looking around, and there's a load of doors in front of you, and you're trying to figure out which door you're supposed to go in.
Yeah,
no one's telling me which door it is. I walked around and went to 5 different doors before I got to the right door for this studio. Now, you're just increasing your possibility of losing that person and them giving up on the task in hand. If you're only giving the person one door to walk through, and that's the door that you think they should be walking through, then that's the way to do it. They're going to make a beeline for that door, open it and walk in and then have that conversation, which is great. But I think too often people go down a route of almost too soft, too vague. Let's take them to this page. Let's let them have a look around. Let's see what they want to explore. Maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something to download. Maybe there's links here to other pages. Maybe there's a video over here. The person's going to get to that page and just be in a state of flux. Right? What does this person want me to do?
Yeah.
And the cleaner it is. Click here to learn about this thing, which is a solution to this problem, which we think you have. Go to that page. That message is amplified. They've got a bit of more explaining content around what that solution might be and what they might want to explore. And then it's either download something or give them a point of conversion to just get to the next stage with that process, whether it's a conversation, whether it's accessing a content piece or whatever. I firmly believe in that linear funnel.
Yeah.
And not giving people the opportunity to deviate off into paths you don't want them to go down.
Definitely. I mean, it's create the hook, give them the value, and then make sure that you do the follow-up. And the last bit, I mean, everyone gets online advertising. So you touched on it before, but everyone gets that, you need to be out there. And that's obviously why you're listening to it. Like, I need to advertise. And then they get the need that they need to create something of value. And it doesn't have to be war and peace, but it should be something that someone picks up and goes, oh, actually, they made a lot of sense with that. Or, help them understand their problem more, but they really need to speak with you to take the next step. It's quite generic. Obviously, it wouldn't be personalized advice. Yeah. And we'll get onto the compliance part of that in a minute. But the bit that I see people really fall down on is they get this lead in, and then, well, you can tell the story when you came into us initially, but they just weren't getting called as quick enough. And that logistical step of actually, they reckon that you should call a lead when it comes in within the first 5 minutes. That is when you have the biggest uptake. After that, it gradually decreases. If you're calling a lead 3 days later after they've made a comment on your website, that's too late.
Way too late. And you're battling with human inertia all the time here, right? And when you've dealt with clients, that you've got to constantly keep nudging them along because their lives are going on. and they're getting distracted by all sorts of things, and not continuing to think about this solution that you're discussing with them and that they really, really need. And that's what you're battling with the whole way through. So if you're capturing leads, and then at that point just say, right, okay, yeah, well, hopefully they'll follow up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they're just not going to do that. They're going to, their kids need new shoes. They've got other things to think about. So that follow up is so important, and I think comes back. It's the same problem, I think, really, as the messaging piece, because I think there's a mindset of almost like it's almost an apologetic or too defensive. Oh, yeah, I can't really call these people.
Yeah.
But they've inquired.
Yeah.
They've come to you. They've walked into your shop.
100%.
Providing you've utilised all the right the right text and the right explainers of right. When you come through this form, this is what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
As long as you've explicitly left it out there in terms of what they can expect to happen, then call them straight away.
100%. Call them straight away and follow up.
Yeah.
Like, if someone tells you you followed up too much, in my view, you've probably done it enough.
Yeah.
I know that sounds kind of, I know that sounds kind of a bit, it's until someone says, no, go away, I'm not interested, that you should keep following up with that person. And I think in life, too many times now, we're too nice.
Yeah.
It's too worried about, will this person think about this or this person think about that? And actually, it's just normally life gets in the way. It's normally a false emotion appearing real. And that false emotion is you are saying that they're thinking one thing, this guy's too much, when really they're not. They're just busy with life.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing for you to call that lead. It is not the prospect's most important thing for them to answer. So therefore you have to heighten it and raise it with their, in their importance. And in my view, you're doing them a disservice if you don't. If they've inquired about something and then you just let it go, then surely someone has said that they need your help or expressed the need of help. And then you're just not giving them the help that they need.
Absolutely. I think that hits the nail on the head. You're essentially dealing with somebody that directly or indirectly has put their hand up and asked for some help. It's a cry for help about a problem that they've got. By nature, they are going to continue to try and bury their head in the sand about that problem.
Yeah.
It's the personal trainer like nagging you, right? You've got to do these reps. You've got to keep going if you want the physique, if you want the healthy body that you crave. If you want financial independence, it isn't going to happen unless you follow up on this interest you've declared, and we sit down and go through it and follow up. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, these are services that that people have to be followed up on and be chased on to make sure that they go the full 10 yards.
Yeah.
And you describe it very right. I think you're doing a disservice to the prospect that's come to you in the first instance if you just treat that very softly and say, all right, yeah, I can tell you need some help, but I'll leave it with you. Yeah, which is not very helpful to that person. He's probably already put it off for about 10 years before they summoned up the bravery to actually knock on your door in the first place.
Exactly. You're pushing it down the line.
Yeah.
And I think that another thing let's just kind of touch on it while we can is compliance. So obviously we all operate in a regulated environment. If you're giving financial advice globally, you will have to be regulated no matter where you are, be that by the SEC in the US, be that by the FCA in the UK, ESCA, DFSA, ADGM, whoever it is here, you would have to be you'll have to be properly regulated.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's rules around promotion and and what you can say and what you can't say. How do you ensure that the adverts and that the messaging that we put out is compliant for those financial promotions?
Well, we have incredibly rigid processes around that now as a business. We have to, for all the reasons that you've cited there. So the way we structure it is that we have a weekly compliance roundtable meeting, which is co-chaired by myself and our group head of compliance. All of the content pieces, whether it's actually for advertising or for other channels, would have been submitted into that committee in the course of the prior 7 days. We've got all the regional heads of compliance on that panel. That's their chance to raise any concerns or any recommended changes to what we put in front of them, and then we insert those into a round of edits and move forward. We've been doing that now for 2 to 3 years, and what we found is that as a department we've become way more wise and understanding of what those requirements look like, and had a much more cohesive relationship with compliance, so that we've been able to make sure that most of what we want is things to just sail through that sign-off process, right? And we've worked hand in hand in compliance to get it as close to that as possible. Today, we're also using smart tools to intelligently scan our content pieces before we even get it to the compliance committee,
which is great.
Yeah, exactly, to try and raise any flags within our department before we push it through. I find that very disruptive, or I did find it very disruptive early on. I think the relationship between marketing and compliance is going to be a very, very sort of fractured one at the beginning, because it's our job to create things that people are going to react to, which naturally is going to toe the line to what a regulator says that they want you to say.
Yeah.
But over time you realize just how important that is, and that you can't take any risks within that space. And I think as we're talking as we are today to people who might be potentially thinking about doing this, I think that's a really, really heavy message to take on board. Back to the agency part, if you're dealing with an agency that doesn't understand how a financial regulator is going to treat and look upon your ads, then you're immediately taking quite a big risk. It's not like selling shoes or gas ovens.
Yeah.
There are very, very tight controls around what type of messaging and how you can display it.
Yeah, I think it's not a reason not to do it. It's you just need to make sure that you really take these things, you take these things seriously, because you will come a cropper, because the regulators globally do look at this stuff, and they do want to make sure that you are doing it. But it definitely shouldn't deter you. No. Because also it's another barrier to entry. It means that a lot of people will be deterred and they won't want to do it because of that reason. So therefore there's more opportunity to you is generally how I see it. Another thing that I think people also do is they don't give these things long enough. Like they start them and then they stop them very, very quickly. So we get that compliance it's not compliance getting in the way, it's being scared of what you can say and what you can't say, so therefore you do nothing.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other side, which is, I've tried it, didn't work for me within the first week, therefore I'm turning it off.
Yep. Yeah. It's that commitment again to spending a bit of money, to sticking with the process for a period of time, being consistent. How many times we talk about, with various things around our business, you've got to be consistent with things.
100%.
And yeah, because in financial services, the turnaround to purchase can be so long. If you bail out on that process of filling the funnel up, then all you're going to do is just go in a sort of state of flux in a cycle. Because if you generate leads for a month and you think to yourself, right, I'm going to stop spending more money, I'm going to see what's going to happen to those leads, and then make decisions around whether I'm going to spend any more. Well, that might take you 5 or 6 months to actually turn any of those initial leads into a client. In the meantime, 5 months have passed where you haven't pulled anyone else into your funnel. So you're going to be starting from ground zero again at the 6 month mark, having converted your first client, which means that your second client's not going to come until another 6 months down the line, and you're never going to get any momentum moving through. So it's about entering into it with your eyes open and realizing, okay, right, it's not about me deciding to spend some money in month one and then deciding whether or not to continue. You've got to commit to minimum a 6 month investment into it to make conclusions around whether it's working for you, whether it's delivering.
100%.
Yeah.
It's not something you can turn on or turn off.
You will fail if you do it that way. I went through a period where I was working independently with an array of advisors across Europe, generating inquiries for them on an independent basis, and that was the dominant frustration for me with working with those guys. Is that consistently it was, I'll spend a few £100 here, I'll spend a few £100 there, stop and start, and they didn't get the results.
Yeah.
Most cases because they weren't prepared to enter into it onto a consistent basis.
It's that long-term mindset with it, isn't it? That this is going to be something that we're going to do for the long term. You either choose to do it or not, knowing that it is going to cost money initially. Yep. It is an investment. Yep. I've said that wrong. It's an investment. It's not a cost. And that's how you have to see it. That's the mindset that you have to have with it. What are some of the other challenges and lessons that you've kind of learned from your time from doing this then as well?
I think platform selection is a big one. I think it takes us back a little bit to your understanding who your audience are and so forth. But if you get that wrong, and don't understand how the differences between the platforms are, then that's going to be a real problem. And I think if you are working with a marketer, with an agency, then they should be able to guide you with that. But yeah, if you're looking to approach people who are of a professional standing, then obviously you look at LinkedIn perhaps as a potential platform. If you look at people of a middle age range, then typically today those people are on the Meta platform, or they're watching videos on YouTube and so on. That if you get that wrong, if you don't have the right creative and the right style of offer for the right platform, showing static ads on a video-based platform is not going to work. These are things that there's so many layers to put in a campaign together. It definitely isn't a case of, right, I've got one ad, I'm going to bash that out on 4 platforms and it's going to work everywhere. Absolutely not. When we create one campaign, we're probably creating upwards of 18 to 20 different varieties of that single creative message, so that we can be sure of having an effective version of that message to go on different positioning across different platforms. So I think that's a mistake that some people will make at the outset. I also think that trying to go too broad, like consciously trying to go too broad, is a very common mistake. It's like, all right, let's just put ads out and I don't really mind where they are in the world. I don't really mind whether they're male or female. I don't really mind how old they are. Well, that's helping nobody, basically. Not at the consumer end or at the advertiser end. You're just not going to match anything with anything, basically, at all. But typically, with somebody who isn't experienced in the space, that's going to be their default. That's going to be their default. It's the equivalent of sticking a flyer on a lamppost and just hoping that the right person's going to walk past.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the most common error, I would say.
It is definitely an interesting one. And look, and the other one, obviously, compliance, which we've covered as well.
We've covered off,
which is which is key. But look, I think we'll kind of end on that note now. But that was a really interesting chat, Alan. Thanks very much for your time, and hopefully, people listening, you've learned a bit more about what it takes in terms of being able to use adverts within your business and help you scale that. Ads are the single fastest way to a scale as a financial advisor, whether you own your own business or whether you're just doing it for yourself today. They don't replace relationships, but they help you accelerate them through. So if you're investing in visibility, or if you're not investing in visibility, you're really losing the ground on what others are doing as well. I massively encourage you to really look at this seriously if you're keen on organically growing your business. Hope that was use, and thanks very much, and hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks very much.